Good morning. Sorry, I made a delay in putting the ID on the internet on WhatsApp. Right, good morning. Today will be a wind-up session on the module 3. So I just wanted to present something that we have been doing over the last few weeks. Okay, I'll try to share with you my screen. Okay, and then let's see how you are able to respond to that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Are you all able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I
Yes.
think you're able to look at the screen. So I put some very basic definitions of TQM as such. Okay. So we all know that TQM aims at improving the quality, and it identifies the best measure of quality as matching customers' expectations in terms of service, product, and experience. We can always break down this particular sentence into small segments, and then we can ponder over each one of them, which is what we are trying to do here. And especially with regard to the customer, this is what we have been doing in this whole module, right? Okay, just a recap of what we did in with regard to customer in TQM. First, we identified who is a customer, right? And then we classified customers. So customer is anybody who could buy anything from you, okay, or who receive final products. And then we classified them as two kinds of customers: internal customers and external customers. So external customers are those who receive the final products, right? And they normally occur at the organization levels, okay? And internal customers. So this is very important. Customers are the people who interact with the organization. So for example, you are a manufacturer and you manufacture a particular product. So when the customer is buying a product, he is buying from your company, right? So he is interacting with your company. He's not interacting with your person who actually manufactured it, the common people or the employees who did it. But that is not the case in terms of internal customers. Internal customers are those people whom you occur at the process and departmental levels within the company, and not necessarily within the company, even sometimes outside the company, right? So there are aspects which we discuss in terms of identifying customers. Okay. So what parts or products are produced? So who uses our parts are produced? Who do we call and correspond or interact with? Who supplied the inputs to the process? So all these questions are going to help us to identify who is our customer, right? So this is very, very important. Now, with regard to that, then we try to understand how what to say, implementation of TQM is important, and how the management becomes a very central core core, what to say, delegating authority, which ensures that the TQM gets implemented. So leadership is a very important aspect of management to ensure that implementation happens in the very smooth and the optimum manner at every phase of delivery. And senior management is very important to they should basically accept this TQM as the core values of their organization. Timing of implementation is a very important aspect. Okay, so if you mistime your implementation strategies, then the whole what to say, organization can also fall down, right? So timing is very important. You have to identify what is happening with your organization and what kind of strategies will work for you people, right? And we are not discussed much about something called as a quality council. Okay, so this quality council is a very important body in an organization which implements TQM, right? So down the line, probably when we start looking at what to say, how TQM is getting recognized, maybe you heard of terms like black belt implementation, Six Sigma implementation. All these things are various different, what to say, levels of quality implemented by organizations, right? Now, for implementing such quality, there needs to be certain, what to say, body which will monitor and which will ensure that it is delivering its objectives, right? So the quality council is a very important body that gets framed up. So when you look at organizations which claim themselves to be like black belt and all, they will have a, what to say, a council that will dedicatedly 24/7 work towards identifying places where things can go wrong or places where quality can be improved, and their job is to do that, right? So that being their task, they keep on working, they keep on improving the processes, and that's when they get a title or a certificate which for using which they can claim themselves as Six Sigma or black belt qualified quality, what to say, manufacturers, right? And when you look at the people involved in implementation, the mid-level managers, the frontline supervisors, they're also, their active implementation is very, very important, right? So quality is not only with regard to the management, right? So it's of regard to everybody involved. So even the people, the employees, the lowest level of the employees who work in the organization have to be aware of what quality they are trying to deliver and how they are trying to deliver. So unions must be part of the organization's TQM. Communication, very important. I have given examples of cases where if there is a misimplementation of the strategies, communication, if the communication is not properly done, then what intent of the company and what gets communicated will be completely different, and then that will be a total disaster, right? So awareness about quality training is very important, because you can't expect anybody to be producing a quality product overnight. So there has to be a training process, and through training, they'll be able to deliver the quality, right? So after all those things, then you need to evaluate, right? So there must be some benchmarks that you have, or some kind of evaluation strategies that has to be evolved. So you have your employee based strategies to extract information. So you have your employee surveys, you have your customer surveys to extract information from the customer, supplier surveys, right? So there are people who deliver sub products to you, using their product you manufacture your final product. So suppliers become very important. If, as I was trying in the first initial classes, quality is not only from you, quality is from within, right? So the whole, so that means to say, even if the supplier who's supplying a product is delivering a non-quality product, then your product cannot be claimed as a quality product. So they should also implement the strategies or the quality exercises that you are doing, right? So that's the whole job or the whole idea behind all those things, right? So then we learned about how a customer perceives quality. So we defined certain parameters using which the customer defines quality. So performance was first among them, and then in performance we spoke about can anybody reiterate what was there in performance? Anybody? Hello. Are you all able to hear me? Hello. No, this is not fair enough. I need responses from you people. I'm not able to hear any one of you. Hello. Karthik, you're there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are you able to hear me? I need responses. This is not the way I want things to happen. You need to have a review of things that we were doing, and then we'll be able to respond back. So I think the first thing that we did it in performance was to basically talk about the availability of the product. Then we spoke about the what to say mm, how the product is robust, how the product is retainable. So there are certain parameters that we use to measure the performance to indicate quality. Then features was discussed. Then service. Then service, when we speak about service, the people involved, the frontline people, and all those stuff we discussed. We discussed about warranty. We discussed about how price becomes a very important factor, and then finally we discussed on reputation. So these were some of the important, what to say, points that is going to bring up a perception about the quality about a product in the customer, right? So this is what we discussed. Then we also discussed how what to say needs are translated into customers' requirements. So first of all, how do you gather needs is through feedback, and then once you have gathered the needs of the customer, then there is a what to say a model using which you can convert those needs into requirements, right? So we discussed about the Kano model, which is a very important model uh, where we discussed about three different curves. So the curve here, which is there in the middle, starting from this point to this point, this is your easily identifiable or what to say requirement which are explicitly expressed by the customer. So you know what the customer needs. So then you try to fulfill the needs, and this is how the satisfaction of the customer is going to happen. And then there are certain this is a curve called as the what to say unspoken requirements of the customer, right? So the customer would basically require certain needs, but he will not tell. He'll say by default that will be expected from the product. So you have to identify these requirements and then fulfill these requirements, without which your product is not going to be accepted by the customers. Now, so this curve has to be done. The customer does not tell you the requirement, but you need to fulfill it. This is the curve where the customer explicitly told you that I need this, and then you try to fulfill this. Now, this too has to be done for the product to sell. But selling does not end there. You need to retain the customer. You need to make the customer come back to you. And that does not happen. These can make you sell, these can make you bring new customers, but retaining the old customers is through this curve, which is called as the innovations curve, where you try to identify the hidden desires of the customer with regard to the product, and then you try to fulfill his requirement through your products, right? So this is the model, very important model, and this is a very important topic for examination also, right? Okay, then what does feedbacks enables organizations to do? So they can discover the customer satisfaction, whether he's been able to be a satisfied person with your product. They are able to discover priorities of quality. So if at all there are five different parameters that the customer uses for quality perception, which among those five is a higher priority, right? So that you can start from the highest priority, fulfill it, then go to the next level, next level, next level. So that's how feedbacks give the organizations an advantage. You can compare performance with the competitors, right? So that is also through the feedback you can do that. And you can identify customer needs, determine opportunities for improvement. So these are some of the very important aspects of feedback that can be gained. Then what are the tools to collect feedback? We have gone through all of these. Okay, so we went through comment cards, we went through questionnaires or basically surveys. Then you have your mass SQL or focus groups, right, where you bring certain customers into your work environment, and then you keep a moderator, and then you start asking questions to elicit the hidden characteristics of a customer, right? Then you have your telephone free, toll free numbers. Then you have customer visits, report cards, internet computers, feedback. So these are some of the tools for your to collect customer feedbacks. All right. These are very straightforward questions that have come in your examination. So these are the main points, and then you need to elaborate on each one of them to gather marks. Then what do, yeah, this is more important. I just wanted to give a review of what surveys uh, can bring to an organization, right? So surveys, you can identify the difference between a client and a customer, right? So that's more important. Surveys raise customer expectations. So this is a very important point that we have already discussed, because when you ask somebody certain questions which he has never come across, you are already putting a seed in his mind about what his expectations should be, right? So that is very, very important for a an organization to ensure that you are already giving certain expectations to the customer. Okay. How you will ask a question will determine how it will be answered. So it's very important to ask a question so that you can elicit the information that you want from the customer to give you, right? And you have to be more specific with your question. Your time with the customer will be very limited. Okay, so development of the service itself will require a lot of time, because you should not be spending a lot of time interpreting the data, right? So your questions should be framed in such a manner that the answer that the customer gives you should be able to give you you'll be able to interpret that, uh, and that should answer the questions for which you asked, right? So that is more important. Okay. But you should also know before you gather information on how you are planning to collect this particular data, right? So that's very, very important. So that being the very important aspects of what we have discussed, there were a few more points that we have discussed in with regard to the customer. One would be about the quality of service, how you evaluate quality of service. So we had different points to discuss. We spoke about organization, we spoke about customer care, we spoke about communication, we spoke about frontline people, we spoke about leadership, and all those stuff to basically determine the service quality. Then, after all these efforts, retaining the customer was a very important aspect. And then we spoke about customer retention, right? So, what is customer retention? It means retaining the customer to support your business, right? Uh, so, how do you do that? How do you what to say? Take certain steps to ensure that there are certain students who, what to say, customers who come back to you, right? So top management should be committed to ensure that there is customer satisfaction. The satisfaction leads to loyalty, and loyalty leads to retention of the customer, right? So you need to identify and understand the customer. So what do they like and what do they dislike, and all other things. Okay, you need to develop a standard of quality. Okay, I always keep talking about Toyota and a few other companies which are good benchmarks for quality, right? So they set up the standards and others try to follow, reach out to their standards, right? You need to recruit and reward and train good staff. All these things are mandatory to retain a customer, right? So always be in touch with the customer, work towards continuous improvement of communication and customer service, and reward the customer wherever you can, okay, for accomplishment by the frontline customers, okay. So all these things are factors that are were related to the customer retention. So this is all we have already discussed. So this was half of the module 3, where we spoke about the what to say, external customer. The other half of the module was about the internal customer, which was the employee, right? So today I wanted to talk about certain what to say terms that are used to motivate employees. So motivation was one of the topics we discussed yesterday. We discussed on how important it is for an employee to be motivated. We spoke about how more motivation can be classified as internal and external, right? So we know about how today we'll just look into a few more what to say philosophies, or rather than what to say hierarchies of how motivation is achieved in general by any employee of any organization, or people in general. So there was a theory that was floated by Maslow's. We call it as Maslow's need hierarchy. Okay, this is the same Maslow's need hierarchy for students who have learned this in what to say management, entrepreneurship, and management. Right. So there are levels of achievement. So the lowest level being the what to say the basic or needs or the survival needs of a person. So he will think about anything. The first thing that he's going to think is roti kabda or makan, right? So he needs to survive, he needs to live, right? So only when he fulfills his basic needs, then his next set of needs or higher level needs are going to become prioritized. Okay, so now we are discussing Maslow's need hierarchy. Maslow's need hierarchy has 5 levels, right? So the lowest being the survival or the basic needs. The next one being the security need. Okay, level 2 is the security needs. Once his basic level needs are fulfilled, he would always look out for security. That means if he is able to get a meal every day, he's going to survive. His next priority would be to find a place to live, right? A good place to live, a healthy place to live. So once he is able to find a healthy place to live, then he would be looking at security needs, or how safe he could be in that particular place. Once he has filled up all this what to say 2 levels of needs, the third level would be the social needs. Okay, where he's now in a position to fill up his basic needs as well as his security needs. Next, he wants to be socialized in the community, right? So he wishes to be what to say recognized in the community. So he wishes to be, how do you become recognized in the community? Can somebody give me some pointers here? Diona, are you there? Likit, for example, if my very basic needs like food and essential things are already filled, the next thing is I want to socialize among people. So social, when it comes to the social needs, the one way of flaunting, I mean, being social is to flaunt your extra money that you have. So you buy a car. So when you buy a car, you are recognized for what car you have bought, and then if you drive in a Mercedes Benz, okay, people recognize you. Okay, there's this person drives a Mercedes Benz, right? So those are certain needs that are there with regard excuse me, with regard to the social being a social humans being a social animal, right? And then the next level is your esteem needs. Esteem needs are there when you fulfill your social needs, and then you try to what to say uh, fulfill your ego, fulfill all your what to say unsaid desires and all those stuff, right? So when you walk into a hotel, you want the what to say the servicemen to be very polite with you. That's an esteem that you expect, right? Usually when you go, when the basic need of a hotel is to fulfill hunger, right? Now you're not going to fulfill your hunger, you're going to a hotel to fulfill your esteem needs. So you don't go to a low level hotel, you go to a 5-star hotel, right? So that you do at that level, the fourth level. And once you have fulfilled your fourth level needs, then there is the final level called as your self actualization. Okay, where you start to realize that all these things, that since all your basic other needs are already filled, only then you're able to think like this. If not, you'll not be able to think, right? That's when you become a philanthropist. Then you start donating your money and all this stuff. You don't donate money the moment you become suddenly rich overnight, right? You need to reach out to that particular experience of fulfilling all the lower four levels. And then when you reach the fifth level of self-actualization, that's when you become a philanthropist or a person who contributes back to the society. Now, why am I talking about this here is, we're talking in terms of employee being a customer. When you don't when an organization does not fulfill the requirements of a employee at different levels, the contribution by the employee for the quality of the product of the organization would be lower when compared to those who are already whose what is the requirements are fulfilled, right? So an organization has to ensure that, or when I say an organization, the kind of pay packages that they provide, the kind of what to say work environment that they provide. I keep giving examples of, you might be a well-paid paid employee, but if you are made to work in a dirty environment, you don't want to work in a dirty environment even though you're getting paid high, right? You're understanding? So if today tomorrow somebody comes and tells you that you will have to work from a office which is there inside which is next to a very big dustbin dumping yard, but you'll be paid 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees per month. I don't know, maybe because you can keep on priorities, but as you keep on fulfilling your priorities, when it comes to the esteem needs, you will not work there, right? So these are certain very important aspects that an organization has to remember to provide facilities to the employees to ensure that all these needs are met. There is another theory of motivation called as Herzberg's need theory. Okay, we call it as a two-factor theory, where there are two factors. One is called as motivators, another one is called as dissatisfiers, right? So there are certain factors of the environment which will motivate an employee to work to perform more efficiently, and there are certain factors that is dissatisfiers are those things that is going to pull down the efficiency of the employee, right? So there are many factors. We can say motivators could be appreciation from the employer. Okay, this factor could be something like a like two employees are there. One is getting heavily paid, one is getting not paid equivalently, even though they are doing the same kind of job. So that is a dissatisfactor for. So one of them is it's a motivator for the other person because I'm getting more money, but it's a dissatisfactor for the other person who is getting less money. So all these things are various points that an organization needs to remember while developing strategies for TQM, right? So how do you develop a more motivated workforce? So managers needs to create an environment for individuals to motivate themselves. Okay. So some of the concepts of motivated workforce would be know thyself. Okay. Managers should understand the motivation, what kind of motivations really works for the employees, and they should know their strengths and weaknesses, cover up their weaknesses, and then provide scaffolding for their weaknesses as well as improve upon their strengths. Okay, know your employee. You should organizations or employers should know their employees, right? And then establish a positive attitude in the work environment. Share the goals. So it should not be that the management has certain goals, but if it is not communicating, for example, let us say the management has decided that this year they want to cross a certain landmarks number of sales. Okay, this they don't commit to the communicate to the employees, let us say, but they force the employees to produce more so that they are able to sell more and achieve more. So without telling the employees that we are targeting this much of sales, so it requires so much of production, you just, if you ask employees to work for an extra shift, they're not happy, right? So communication is very important. Share your goals and monitor progress, very important. Developing interesting work should be interesting, right? So what kind of work is being worked out is very important, and celebrate success along with the employees. So these are certain pointers that one has to keep in mind. Anyway, I'm going to make a PPT of all the points that I'm making up now. Okay, and then I'm going to share it with you in the classroom, Google Classroom, which can be used for your study towards your internals and final exam. Okay, so these were some of the points. Yeah, and employee surveys are important. We discussed on how empowerment of what to say employees is very, very important, right? uh, what do you mean by empowerment? Okay, um, let me put it through this. Okay, uh, before you expect something from an employee, you should ensure that he is capable of delivering that, right? That means to say, if you expect an employee, let us say in a textile based company, okay, a garments based company, if you're expecting an employee to stitch 10 shirts in a day, uh, that's your target that you're setting him, but you should also ensure that he should be capable of delivering it. So how do you ensure that? So proper guidance must be provided, proper training must be provided. So empowerment is that, you're understanding. Empowerment is not necessarily always like making somebody become a supervisor or anything. No, empowerment is that. Empowerment is where you make sure that that particular employee from which you are expecting certain things to be delivered is capable of delivering that. You empower him with the all the requirement that is required, and then you expect him to deliver what you are asking him to, right? So that is more important. Okay, and then you should also let people to do themselves. Or what to say, over monitoring can also diminish the efficiency of the employers, right? So tell people what their responsibilities are, give authority, set standards for excellence, render training, provide knowledge and information, trust them. Okay, so allow them to commit mistakes, so that they can realize the mistakes and not do it again, right? Treat them with dignity and respect. So these are certain, what to say, aspects of empowerment, right? So what will be the dimensions of empowerment? It could be capability, alignment, and trust. So these could be the major headings under which empowerment can be categorized, right? So then working in teams are also a very important aspect in an organization. So what is a team? A group of well-organized people, okay, working together to achieve common goals. So this could be put as a team. So what is a teamwork? Teamwork is a cumulative action of the team during which each member of the team subordinates his, subordinates his individual interests. He subordinates his individualism. So when he's working in a team, his personal opinions are overridden by the team's interest. So that is more important. So that is why teams are very important. Okay. uh, and then we all know why teams work, and there are different types of teams. There are something called as process teams, cross-functional teams, natural work teams, self-directed or self-managed teams. So these are various categories or types of teams that are there. Okay, and certain characteristics of successful teams. Okay, could be team composition, ground rules, accountability, and what to say, resources, effective problem solving, leadership, cohesiveness. So these are characteristics of teams, right? Training, okay, well defined decision procedures. Okay, so all these things are what to say, characteristics of successful teams. Okay, there are different roles of persons in teams. Okay, so somebody could be a leader, somebody could be a facilitator, somebody could be a recorder, somebody could be a timekeeper, somebody could be a team member, right? So each one has his own roles and responsibilities. I'll share a little more because we don't have enough time to dwell more into each of these topics in depth. Okay, I'll be sharing with you my PPT where all these points would be discussed, and we can come back on certain points of discussion later. Okay. Yeah, and there are certain barriers for team progress. Okay, when a team has been made and if the team is not being progress, so there will be some barriers. Okay, so what are those barriers? Could be like insufficient training, okay, and incompatible rewards and compensations, first time supervisor resistance, lack of planning, lack of management report, okay, support, access to information systems, then lack of union support, scope being too large, okay, project objectives are not very significant, no clear measures of success, no time to do improvement work. So all these things could be barriers for what to say your teams to be not successful, right? Yeah. So that being the case, we also discussed in the last class on recognitions and rewards. Okay, we also discussed that it's very important to have a recognition and a reward system, because you that's one of the motivating factors, right? You strive for it. Why does many a people strive? Because they money is only one factor, right? But recognition is even more important. After some time in the Maslow's need hierarchy, once you have completed your social needs and all, right, your esteem needs is recognition. You, if you have money, you're not happy. You want to be recognized in the society that you have money, right? So that's more important. If you do something good, you want to be recognized that I did this work, right? So these are the reasons. Like, you government gives you all those kinds of awards. What to say, Gnanapith award, what to say, what to say, what are the Rajyotsava awards, okay, for what to say, all these soldiers and all, they're giving different kinds of awards, because that is the recognition and it's a motivation for others to achieve their kind of feats, okay, that they have done, okay. And we all know what are the effects of recognition systems and all those stuff, okay. Performance of appraisal is a process through which employees are made to become what to say, uh, or basis for promotions, right? So performance appraisal is a basis for promotions, increase in salaries, and counseling and other purposes of an employee related, right? And we all have discussed the importance of performance appraisals, benefits of performance appraisals, and all the stuff, okay. And again, it is a continuous process and it needs to be properly worked out. So this is a kind of concluding session that we had on the module 3. So I'll be sharing with you my PPTs as quickly as possible on this particular module, along with a set of questions. Okay, these are not exactly questions for internal. These are questions on topics which have a high probability to come in your internals as well as on your external general. Okay, so all those topics I'm going to frame as questions and circulate to you in class. Okay, and I want you people to answer these as assignments and put it back in the Google Classroom. Are you clear with that? I'll give you sufficient time. You can't say that we don't have time because you have nothing else to do. Okay. So try to work on my, what to say, questions, find answers, find innovative answers to that. And then we will meet in the next class on Monday, right? So our next session is on Monday, provided it's not a holiday. All right. All right. I hope all of you are safe. I hope all of you are taking all the safety measures. Okay. And then I hope that all this coronavirus and lockdown comes out quickly, and we should be able to meet. All right. Take care. Goodbye. Bye bye.
Hi, sir. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.